Ethan joining the show right now. He's been writing for many years for the News Times, the Hearst Media Company, and then his articles appear in the Connecticut Mirror and many other local papers. And he's been a big talking point on the Ethan and Lou Show. We're joined by writer Jim Cameron. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We appreciate you coming on. We're good. Thank you. So let's get right to the deal.
Get right
okay?
to the deal.
So you wrote an opinion piece about the Maybrook train line proposal and the associated study, and former Mayor Boughton came out and said, we asked him about it, I'm sorry, on the show, your criticisms. Sure. He said you were miserable, and then he said no one cares what you think.
He's a bit aggressive.
I know our listeners...
Well,
our listeners
do I seem like a miserable person here?
No, you don't. No.
So let me give you the background. I'm a transit advocate. I served on the Metro North Commuter Rail Council for almost 20 years. There is no bigger fan of supporting riders on Metro North than me. And I'm a little miffed that the former mayor attacks me personally rather than talking about facts that I presented. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, but he's not entitled to his facts. And the facts are that it's really wasting money doing a study on this Maybrook line when money should really be spent on improving the existing Danbury line. Now, I've ridden the entire length of the Maybrook line, 14 miles from Danbury to Brewster. And I invite your listeners to, cast a gaze either off of 84 or Route 6 and 202 next time they're driving that way and take a look. It's a single track rusting railroad that hasn't been used in weeks or months. Metro North is even thinking of abandoning the route themselves. And it's not going to offer what the mayor promised as part of a political campaign to, quote, shave an hour off of commuting time from Danbury. The math just does not add up. So he's entitled to describe me any way he wants, but the facts are the same, that we don't have the money we need to run the existing trains, let alone start wasting money on studies and possible expansion of that little tiny railroad. If you got a hole in the roof of your house, you fix it first before you start talking about building a porch off for a sun deck. And we need to fix what we've got already before we start wasting money on pie-in-the-sky dreams of bullet trains going over to Westchester.
Now, I'm Ethan and I are both coming into this as, Ethan loves trains. I love trains too, but we know nothing about the subject. So we're coming in extremely green. But over the last couple of weeks, in reading your comments, hearing from the former mayor, and then reading these enthusiasts, this entire underground that I didn't even know about, hearing their thoughts, I get the impression that the shaving an hour off the commute might have been this presentation to the community that they could respond to quickly, but it's the future. And I'm not speaking for Boughton here, but I get the impression from certain folks that it's the future of what this line could do financially and for traffic congestion and to open up to different towns like, say, New Milford. What do you say about that?
Well, I'm all for investing in the future, but as I said, we don't have money for the present right now. I mean, ridership on all of Metro North, especially in the Danbury branch, is down 80%. Even when the trains were running at peak performance, standing room only, every single train ride lost money. So we're looking at huge multi-billion-dollar deficits. And I'm all for investing in the future, but I'm really worried about the next 3 to 5 years. And the next 3 to 5 years are going to be dependent upon getting riders back on the existing trains. And I don't know if Mayor Boughton has ever, certainly not recently, ridden the Danbury branch. I would invite him to go down to the Danbury train station and talk to commuters that take it and ask them what they need. I mean, that line should have been electrified years ago. Service needs to be improved. And it's not just serving the Danbury community. It's serving all the towns that are on that rail line, all the way down to Norwalk and then into New York City. So I think that's where the priority has to be.
If you believe everything that is written about Metro North, and I don't know your personal feelings, but is that the organization we're getting into bed with here in Brewster, New York, and Danbury, Connecticut? And if so, are they the disaster financially in terms of organizing their finances that is written about all the time?
Well, let's remember that the Connecticut Department of Transportation hires Metro North to run our trains, and we're the ones in Connecticut that pay the deficit. that make up the difference between the cost of operation and the actual fares that are collected. So Metro North is like the only game in town right now, and we have to work with them. But I have ultimate faith in the Department of Transportation. They have people who know railroads there as well too. And I've talked to people at the DOT, and they're just scratching their heads about this whole Maybrook study. They've looked at that before, and they just said it doesn't make any sense. So I think what we found is that Mayor Boughton promised something without knowing the fact as part of a re-election campaign. And where is he now? Why did he take off and go off to Hartford and leave this ball of wax in his successor's hands?
Jim Cameron joining the show, writer for the News-Times, and his stories are picked up in all of your local papers. Danbury Mayor Joe Cavo says it's a study. That's what it's there for. Let's let it do its work and see what comes back. And, of course, I'm paraphrasing. What do you say to that?
Well, it's typical of the legislature, and in this case, I guess the new Mayor Joe. If you don't want to do something, you study it. And, it's $1 million we're talking about here. And whether it's, all our money from Connecticut, taxpayer money, or some of it's coming from, Putnam County that's trying to discourage people from using their parking lots at their train stations, it's money that could be invested in what we know needs to be done now. So a study is a way of just saying, I don't want to make a decision. The Danbury line has certainly been studied, and we know what needs to be done there. They've been talking about electrifying and speeding up those trains for decades, and yet nothing has been done. So even if let's take the best possible scenario. Let's say this study comes back and says, absolutely, this makes perfect sense. I've talked to experts, and they say that new tracks that had to be laid and ties and ballast would be about $2 to $2.5 million a mile. Every grade crossing is $500,000. To electrify it would be $4.5 million a mile. So just the back of the envelope calculation shows if the study comes back and says, yeah, let's do it, we're talking about $100 million that we don't have. We don't have money to make the Danbury trains run properly now. How are we going to find money for a little 14-mile track, mostly serving Danbury passengers trying to shave 10 minutes at best off their commuting time to New York? And I'm not even sure commuters are going to come back in big numbers.
So what if you're saying, all right, let's not do these dreams of connecting Brewster and Danbury. I keep hearing, dreams. Let's get to the actual issues with the existing transportation system and the different points. What do you think is the solution in making up the money that's missing and getting these trains and the system up to snuff?
Well, to make up for the lost ridership, we can't always depend on Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam and the relief bill that's being finally passed by Congress is going to probably give $6 billion with a B billion dollars to the MTA, which is the parent of Metro North. So we're going to get through this year, but we can't keep supporting empty trains that are running along a train track. Something's going to give. It may be a fare increase. It may be reduced service. It may be layoffs of railroad employees, but I think the new normal is going to mean that we may not see the service that we've got now on Metro North. And I think the solution for people that want to commute out of Brewster is to get a nice, quality, comfortable, amenity-filled bus service, not the Heart bus, which is like 2 steps up above a school bus, but let's put buses on that route. We've just finished spending $750 million fixing up I-84 from Danbury over to the New York line. So why don't we use that? That road is dependable. You can put people on a nice bus with comfy seats and Wi-Fi and plugs for their iPhones, and still get them over to Brewster and not be wasting money on a rusting old railroad.
Jim, we're kind of running out of time here, but we appreciate you coming on. There's a lot of hijinks that comes with the show, the ancillary graphics and the language and such. So
did you say ancillary?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we do.
Jesus, where do those words
come from? There's a newsman. He knows ancillary. Good for you, Lou.
Let me just butt in here for just a quick second. Don't you know? Sure. You've been around the block a couple of times as a journalist. Don't you know some extremely wealthy hedge fund manager in Connecticut where we can go and say, hey, we need $1 billion.
With a hat?
You got the money. Let's give it. Probably
Well,
not.
if there was money to be made on running a railroad, hedge fund people aren't going to just throw money into a deep, dark pit. If there was money to be made on running railroads, they wouldn't be run by the state. They'd be run by the New Haven Railroad that went out of business almost 50 years ago. This is really a public service, and it operates at a loss, and it's subsidized by people that don't take the train. They're stuck out there on 84. So I think we just have to look upon it as a public service. There are people that take the train or the bus, for that matter, who have no choice. They don't have a car. If they don't have a bus or a train to get them to work, they're on unemployment, and we're paying them to sit at home. So I'm all in support of mass transit. I just want to make sure we spend the money wisely.
And is that maybe part of the problem? There's if you're not a commuter, you don't care about it unless you're being asked to pony up some money.
Exactly, and that's why I'd invite, Mayor Joe and Mayor Boughton to, come on down to the train station. Take the train someday. Talk to your constituents. See what their experience is like. See if they really want to have money wasted on a pipe dream.
Can we arrange an Ethan and Lou train peace summit, right? The peace train. We get Ethan.
I hear Cat Stevens being queued up.
yeah. Mr. Yusuf Islam. We'll get Ethan, myself, you, Joe, and Mark, and we ride the train together, and we do a show, and we bring everybody together, under the banner of peace.
Oh, man, you're like the biggest public servant imaginable. I'm there, dude. I'm there.
No fisticuffs allowed.
Unity. This is what we're about here at the Ethan and Lou Show.
That's right, man.
Oh, man. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Anytime, guys.
All right. Take care now.